Hi, my name is Cathy Neptune, and welcome to my kitchen. I'm going to share with you tips, tools, and techniques to make your time in the kitchen fun, fast, and fabulous. And to end up our beautiful summer harvest season, we're going to be doing over here we have our feast of flats. Everything we're going to make this evening is going to be flat and fabulous. And I think it's a great way to entertain. I don't know if I do all of these together or you could use them separately, but there's definitely a theme of flat foods tonight. We're going to start out by doing a tomato tart, fresh tomato tarts. And it's always a good reason to use all the wonderful, colorful heirloom tomatoes that we have available to us. And I have a beautiful bowl here. They come in all different colors. We have the reds. There's one called a black cherry, which is a black tomato, a yellow tomato, orange. Of course, the red ones. I grew green tomatoes once in my garden, but it was a problem because I didn't know when they were ripe. So think about that. It's not easy. But we did it. And we're going to start out. I did this on a stone ahead of time. And this is a puff pastry. And there's a bit of a technique. You can see it's very flat. I took a sheet of puff pastry and rolled it out to the diameter of whatever serving tray you're going to use. And you take a knife and you score around the outer edges of the pastry, not all the way through, but about 3/4 of the way through on the pastry. And then you take a fork or a piercing tool and poke all the center inside this frame so that it doesn't puff up in the oven. And you have a beautiful framed tart base, if you will. So it's a great technique. You can do a round one, a square one, whatever kind is suited to your serving platter. And this, would be a great appetizer dish to make. And I started out with about 3 ounces of softened cream cheese on the bottom. And this is going to be our layer underneath our fresh tomato tart. And we want to kind of have enough to spread a thin layer on the base of your pastry to anchor the tomatoes that are going to go on top. And this is just a whole milk ricotta cheese, and it is 15 ounces. And I'm going to blend that in with the soft cream cheese. And I like the cream cheese because it doesn't make it too sweet. It makes it a little bit tart. So I've used the whole 15 ounces. And if you have any left over, it makes a wonderful dip to use. So we're going to put that in there. And then I raided my herb garden. And I have some wonderful chives, chopped chives. And these are garlic chives, which I really like. But you could use regular chives. And some flat leaf parsley. And we add about a tablespoon of the flat leaf parsley. And the same amount of chopped chives. And you can just eyeball this. You don't need to use any specific measurements. And we're going to blend that together like so. And you can certainly use a fat-free ricotta if you'd like. And this is awesome. And because we have the fresh tomatoes, I'm going to use some fresh basil leaves that I have again from my garden. And a good handful. We're going to chiffonade them, which means we line them up like a tobacco, layers of tobacco, and roll them like so. And probably, again, another tablespoon if you keep everything in even amounts. And roll them up like a tight little cigar. I'm going to use a French term of chiffonade, which means little ribbons, and julienne them very finely. And you want to do this at the very end because if not, they get soggy and turn different black colors. So you can see how loose that is. And about a scant tablespoon of the fresh basil. Oh, this is awesome. And then, because it has tomatoes and it's fresh, we're going to use some fresh garlic with the garlic press. And don't forget to write in if you want to know the tools, how to get the resources for these tools. And I love this because, as I've said, you don't have to peel your garlic.
And always use fresh garlic. It just makes a huge difference because we're not going to bake this. So you're really going to be able to taste and appreciate the fresh flavor of your garlic. And I actually got this from a garlic farm. And I never knew there were so many different flavors of garlic. And this is from Czechoslovakia or some kind of. It's a different flavor of the garlics. And I was really surprised at the difference in the different types of garlic. And there was probably a couple of dozen different types. And it was fun to try all the different types of garlic. And then we're going to take our puff pastry baked sheet, and I'm just going to spread out a nice layer and make sure that your tart crust is cool. This would be so pretty for presentation as a first course or on a buffet. What I like about the recipes, and most recipes I try and do, is they're so versatile. You could do, expand it and do different amounts depending on how many people you're having. So this would be for a nice dinner for two with all your seasonal vegetables that you can just harvest right from your garden or the local farmer's market. And I hope you do visit your local farmers because they have such a wide variety now of all different flavors and colors, and it's a nice thing to do. So I would say just a scant layer on the top. And this is going to be a nice dip for later. And I'm going to set this aside for now, and I'm going to prep the tomatoes. And I'm going to show you the technique that I think I shared with you on another segment, but we're going to cut the tomatoes instead of doing one at a time because I know everybody's busy and in a hurry. I like to do this way. You put just two lids that you have, and you want to hold it so that it fits inside your hand like so, about the size of your hand. You press down a little bit, and you just run the knife right across like so, and you slice the tomatoes, I promise. See that? And you sliced your tomatoes, and it doesn't matter if they're not even. Nobody's going to look and say, hey, that one's not even. I hope not. But you want just enough. Look at the colors on these. They're so nice. And the only part that you cook in this recipe, stay in there, guys, is the puff pastry. And you can certainly do that ahead of time. So, again, I'm going to move this over so you can really see. Holding that down, and you just run your knife at a straight angle right across. And, of course, the covers protect your hands as well. And there you go. Let's do one. I think that'll probably be enough. What do you think? I think that looks great. So I'm going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil to make these glisten and make them a little appealing. It's just regular olive oil. But another resource, what's fun to do is you can get different flavored olive oils. I have a Sicilian lemon, and you can buy a basil garlic, but I use that all up in our tomato season. But I think a nice flavored olive oil would be wonderful in this. And we're going to take our tart. I mean, that looks so pretty already. And all these wonderful colored tomatoes. And we're going to scatter them all over the top. I think this looks like summer. And with the Labor Day weekend coming up, or any time of the year, right into the fall season, you could do this any time of year because the cherry tomatoes are always available. They have the heirloom ones like this all year long, so why not? Now that looks pretty good. I always say if it wasn't me, I'd be impressed because that's looking good. And then a little bit of mozzarella that I've cubed, and you can even buy the little tiny mozzarella balls to put on the top, which look really nice. And spread those around, just a little here and there. You could do Parmesan too if you'd like. I'd say that's enough. And for color, let's do a little more. I'll tell you what, I'm going to use a drizzle of a balsamic glaze over the top, like so. Doesn't this look fancy? But it's so easy and it smells amazing. And a little green parsley. You could certainly put a few more chopped green chives if you like. And how about, let's do this right in the center of a beautiful sprig of basil. How is that? And I would serve this and slice it with a pizza cutter or a serrated knife and serve that as a first course. When we come right back, we're going to do our main dish, which is a roast beef flatbread. We'll be right back. Back to our fiesta of flats, and we're going to do a roast beef flat, kind of a tart or a sandwich. And it starts out, we're going to do a vinaigrette, and you can certainly use an Italian dressing or your favorite dressing that you prefer, but I wouldn't recommend a creamy dressing. If you'd like, you could, but it just makes a cleaner presentation to have a clearer, like a balsamic or a very simple dressing. And I started out, I love these. They're little shaker jars with a lid, and they're so easy to use. And instead of whisking, you just shake it. So I always recommend 2 parts of good extra virgin olive oil. And extra virgin is important. It has a sweeter, lighter flavor, and it's the first cold press from the olives. So it's like a finer wine, if you will. It's a more complex and less harsh flavor on the palate. It's better to use in dressings because they're raw and you can really taste the difference. So try changing up and using extra virgin olive oil. You'll be surprised how it affects your dressing and your palate. I'm using a sherry vinegar, which is a wine, and it's a reserve sherry vinegar, but you could add any kind of a wonderful balsamic. The flavored oils, again, like I mentioned earlier, the flavored vinegars and oils and glazes, you can get them. They now have stores that you could go in like wine tasting and taste the different combinations of the flavored oils and vinegars. And it just reminds me of a wine tasting. It's such a fun thing to do. So I hope someday you can do that and enjoy the experience. In here, excuse me, I'm going to add some fresh horseradish because we're using a roast beef in this. And also a little bit of Dijon mustard. Not much. You don't want it to taste like mustard. And I'm going to put a little bit of fresh parsley for color, a little bit of salt, and just a pinch. You don't have to worry about measuring because it's all going to be good because it's fresh. And then what else? I always like to add a little bit of sugar to take the acid out of the final flavors that you get. And just about half a teaspoon is enough for this amount. And my favorite part, oh, did I put garlic? No, I didn't. So we're going to add some fresh garlic. Again, I'm not going to use the whole thing of garlic, just a little bit. And you could always do this the night before. Be sure to refrigerate it because it has fresh ingredients in here and you don't want it to spoil. But fresh garlic. And you can make it the night before and have it on hand and use it all week long. It's a good thing to do. Many of you have asked where all the scraps go. I do have a trash bucket down there, so, and I usually hit it, which is good. And then look at how easy that is to just shake your dressing. It's good exercise. And then we're going to pour this over some fresh baby spinach, my favorite in the kitchen. And it's just to season this. And we're going to toss that lightly, and that's going to go on top of our flatbread. So that's all done. That was easy. And now I'm going to show you what we did with the bread dough. I just took regular bread dough. You could buy flatbread. You could even do it on a pita crust and toast it first so it's a little substantial. And
you can buy a pre-made pizza crust already baked. You just, it's all formed. But I like the bread dough because I always have it in my freezer. And we baked it and cooled it. That you could do ahead of time as well. So we're going to set that over there. And then we're going to build our base. Much like we did with most of your tarts and flatbreads, you're going to have a base to anchor everything. And I'm going to do a mayonnaise base. Not a lot of mayonnaise, but just about half a cup of mayo. Again, depending on the size of your flatbread. And you don't want a lot on the base of this. It's very rich. I'm going to add a little bit of sour cream. I'd say half as much sour cream as the mayonnaise to keep it light. And let's see. We're going to put in a little bit of green onion. You can see that there's a theme here with all the different flavorings that go in. A little bit of parsley. And we're doing this more or less for color. And I'm going to add a little bit of salt because it's a fresh dressing. And taking our bread dough and just layering the flavors. So a very light, like you would be making a sandwich. You don't want to overload the heaviness of this, but because we added mayo, it lightens it up a little bit, which makes me feel less guilty. And you can hear how crispy that crust is, which is what you want. And I would assemble this not too far in advance because you don't want the spinach and components to get real soggy. So that is going over. And from here on, it's basically assembly. You could certainly do this filling ahead of time and have it in a bowl. There's no problem with that. And I would certainly go ahead and do that. We're going to toss the baby spinach leaves. And you could do, what would be nice on this too is arugula. I like arugula. And you could put any flavorings that you want in here with the baby spinach. And I guess it's healthy. You could substitute a yogurt if you want instead of the mayo. Depending on your taste. I like to give you ideas of different variations. This is going to be such a nice light lunch too. This would be great if you were serving a soup, a homemade soup, and do something like this in place of a salad. So we have our spinach base, and then what makes this special is going to be, oops, put that here, clear the decks, set that there for now, and I have some roast beef from the deli, just plain roast beef. I'm going to take a few slices, and it depends on what you like, and I'm going to cut and make wide strips or ribbons and place them over your flatbread. So this kind of makes a main dish. If you serve nothing like this without the meat, just as we did it, that would be fine too as a side course. But this to me makes it a main dish, and you could twist them, make them look pretty. And you could certainly do this with chicken, but I think the whole theme with our spinach and arugula and the different toppings that we're going to put really defines it as a roast beef type of salad. But this is a good starting point for you to use your own imagination and come up with something inventive, creative, and taking advantage of seasonal ingredients. You can get fancy, and we could do spirals too, like that. My mother always said, don't play with your food. I think that looks pretty nice. And we didn't use a lot of any of these ingredients, but again, depending on the number of people that you want to serve, you're limited just by the amount you want to make or need to make, and your crew that you're having in for a luncheon or a dish. So
we're going to take this and set this aside. And that's not even a quarter of a pound of roast beef. Let me move this up here. And I'm going to sprinkle on some blue cheese, because what goes better with roast beef or steak than blue cheese crumbles? And you could serve this on the side. You may have some guests that don't care for blue cheese. I don't know who those people are, but I would serve that on the side if you suspect that people don't like it. And then let's get out some sliced red onions. And we're just going to put those over the top. And you know, I was thinking too on that note, walnuts. You could do walnuts and blue cheese and so forth, but so many people have allergies now. But you could certainly, and I would definitely do that on the side. And that's our platter of a lovely roast beef. And remember, we have the herb filling underneath to anchor everything. We have a wonderful balsamic glazed dressing for our baby spinach, and you slice and serve that. It's pretty nice, pretty nice. So when we come back, we're going to do a dessert tart, which is another version of a flat feast. We'll be right back. Hi, welcome back. We're on our grand finale of flat fruit tart. And it's not easy to say, but it's easier to make than it is to say. And I started out with you could buy these pre-baked sponge cakes, but I happen to have the tools to make these. So I have a flan pan, and it's half of a cake mix. I made 2 of them because I'm going to make another one for my friends. And this one here is a single one. And you can see it has a little well in here. And in this well, right in here, we're going to do a cream filling. And the cream filling is this. It's a package of instant cheesecake pudding mix, which I love. It's the best thing. You could use white chocolate. You could use plain vanilla too, whatever you like. And we're going to dress it up in here. And I have a container of light non-fat yogurt. And it's a vanilla yogurt. And just to lighten it up, and I'm going to put it in here. And I'm going to measure out a little less than the 2 cups of milk that it calls for. But you have to account for this as part of the milk mixture that you put in. So I know the measurements in here. So we're going to add this probably 1 3/4 cups instead of 2 cups, because we want this to be a little firm in mixing. So we're going to add this, and you can blend this a little bit together, the yogurt and the milk. You can use, this is a 2% milk. You can use almond milk, whatever you like. And I'm going to pour it in here. And it doesn't matter if it's a little lumpy, because we're going to mix it up with a new gadget that I have. I love my tools. Look at this. And I like to think of this as a little bit of exercise. See? So don't I look healthy? Okay, so we put it in here. And we're going to blend the pudding instead of whisking it or getting out a blender or a mixer. That looks really good. It really works. And there we go. You just blend it up and let it set for a minute or 2, but you can see it's getting really thick. And I like the yogurt in there because it feels healthy, because I'm using my exerciser here. Oops, and I'm getting a little healthy as I use it, and it's going to be a little lighter and have a tartar flavor, and I think it really complements your fresh fruits that you're going to put in there. So I'm going to set that aside just to, so it gets a little bit firmer, if you will. And you can even put it in the refrigerator. Let me do that real quick. And it only takes a few minutes to set up. So we're going to do the fresh fruit for our tart on top. And right here I have a platter. And go for color. I always suggest that you look at the seasonal fruits and have an idea of how you'd like to present this. And I have a fresh peach, which is seasonal. And this is a really good-sized peach. And I wouldn't do this till the last minute because you don't want them to turn colors. But we're just going to slice even slices of your peach. And I do them fairly thin because we're going to put them along the border, I think. And you don't want it to be too high and overpowering on the side. The peaches are so good this time of year too. I've even done this in the winter months with frozen peaches. You can certainly do that. Just make sure you drain them really, really well. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to get our beautiful tomatoes. My Cora, remember to email me for these tools because you just can't do this as easily if you don't have the right tools. See, they scoop right underneath. They have little teeth on here, the Cora. And it just takes all the green part off of your strawberries. Why not make life a little easier when you can? And then I sliced and peeled some kiwis, which are always add a nice color. You could do pineapples, and what else could you do? Pineapples would be good. Raspberries, any type of fruit that you'd like that's in season. I wouldn't do apples though, because you really have to cook the apples, and I would suggest that. I could use my egg slicer on these too, but I just want to show you how quick and easy this is. Strawberries are good. Another fruit that's good any time of year. You could do grapes too, red and green grapes. Be very nice. And the biggest part of all of these flatbreads, as you can see, is the assembly. If you do a lot of these components ahead of time, like your base sauces and creams, then you're good to go. And I would slice all your produce and fruits at the last minute so they don't get soggy. Again, this would be great to bring to any picnic gathering that you have. Your family would really be impressed, I think. And that's what it's about. And there's our fruit, and we've sliced our kiwi. I think that should be enough. So I'm going to set this aside. Oh, I hit the bucket. So there we go. Put this aside, and we're going to get out our pudding mix with the yogurt in it. And that looks pretty good. It's all set up. You can see it doesn't take any time at all. And because we used less milk in here, it's a little firmer than it normally would be. It's still nice and creamy, but it has a little body to it. So we're going to put that on top as a base. This is going to be really nice. And again, with any fruit that you use, you want to drain it if you do frozen fruits, because you don't want to make it soggy or runny. And that's why I like the fresh fruits. Pears would be nice too on this. Make sure they're all very ripe when you use them too. You want to maximize the sweetness. So that's the base. There's a little snack for later. I'm going to pull this here. And let's start with the peaches along the edge, like so. And I like to get the larger peaches because you can see the slices are going to be more consistent instead of using two different size peaches. That way you know that they're all going to be about the same size, and it's all about the presentation. I don't know why, but they always come out evenly on the end. So that's pretty good. And then, what do you think? Let's do a little bit of green kiwi. Let's do them this way. These were fairly large kiwi. Again, another fruit that you can get all season long. I don't like that one. I'll put this one instead. There you go. And then some strawberries. Let me see, how can I do this? Let's overlap them like so. I guess I sliced too much strawberry. Okay, that's okay. We'll have plenty. And just make them look as pretty as you can. This is fun to do. This would be a great project for your kids too. They'd love to be doing something like this, I'm sure. Oh, that one's backwards. Do that. And then right in the center for color, because there's plenty of color going on, let's put a few blueberries right along the center like that. A little fresh chocolate mint from my garden. I think I have some in here somewhere. That's basil. Here we go. This is so nice. Chocolate mint. Whoever thought of that? And there is our wonderful fresh fruit tart. You can cut this serve it with a pastry cutter and a spatula. You could put a little whipped cream on the side of each serving. But this is a spectacular, easy, and seasonal recipe that you can adapt any time of year. When we come back, we're going to gather all our flat feasts together, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to our Feast of Flats, and it is a fiesta. Look at the colors and the presentations, and great for our end of summer season celebration. We have a fresh tomato tart with heirloom tomatoes, a ricotta and herb base, and mozzarella, and of course basil and garlic. This is a crowd pleaser. This one here, we have our roast beef flatbread on a pre-baked crust. It's crispy, it's light with the spinach and a homemade vinaigrette, red onions, blue cheese. You can certainly add walnuts as I suggested. And it's a beautiful feast and a main dish too. That would serve for a fabulous luncheon. And then our star dessert, our fresh fruit tart with any fruits that you choose that are seasonal. We used base. We added French vanilla yogurt to a base of instant pudding. You can use any flavor, a cheesecake, white chocolate, or just a plain vanilla pudding. And we added the yogurt to that to substitute for some of the milk. It makes it light and refreshing. You're really going to like that. And then we have the kiwi, blueberries, and some chocolate mint on top. We pre-baked the crust by using half of a boxed cake mix. I really hope you try these recipes. Thank you to everybody who sends in their comments, suggestions, and questions. I'm happy to help and share my time in the kitchen with you as well. Make these, enjoy them. Thank you for watching, and may the fork be with you.